Who are you?
We're just like you. Lost.
They come every night. They watch us until the sun rises again. It's a window on the other side.
All right, The Watchers, the kind of anticipated movie from M. Night Shyamalan's daughter, and wow, was this super disappointing. All right, so when I saw the trailer, I enjoyed it, and I was pretty interested to see how this was going to go. Then it's like, oh, it's from M. Night Shyamalan, and then it's directed by and written, I believe it was written as well, by his daughter, and I'm like, has she ever done anything before? And I looked it up, it was like, nope. So this is Ishana, Night Shyamalan. This is her directorial debut, and I believe somebody told me she was like 22, 23 or something like that. So I'm going to say this. Before I watched the movie, I was on this movie's side. I definitely was like very intrigued to see it. I will say this, and then the movie starts. The first 20 minutes of build-up is kind of interesting. It's interesting. Then when stuff starts happening, it just kind of starts dwindling down, and it's like, oh no, this is not good. So the plot of this movie is Dakota Fanning plays a woman who has a troubled past that she's kind of trying to run away from. So I'll explain it more, but she works at a pet store that apparently delivers. They deliver, like, and it's just like, what? They deliver? Okay, all right. So she goes off, and this is in Ireland, by the way. She goes off into the woods to kind of get like a shortcut, but then all of a sudden her car breaks down, and then typical white people move. I'm just saying that because if you've seen any horror movie with a white person, you know exactly what I'm talking about. They go off and I'm like, nope, no. So then she gets trapped there with these three other people who have been there for a little too long. But then they say that there's these creatures out there called Watchers. And what they do is at night, they stand look, we need to stand in front of this big giant mirror, and they're watching us, and they don't know what intentions they have. Now I'm going to do a spoiler review for this because I feel like this movie, I need to talk about what happens, because it just does not make any sense. So I will say this. I feel like Ishana Shyamalan is trying to use her father's influence in the industry to then get this movie made, and nope. Because what ends up happening is Shyamalan movies to me are very much a flip of a coin, where you're like, okay, this is going to either be really good or it's going to suck. That's what, that is to me. But also, Shyamalan movies, to me, they have really good, great ideas and, a really good story that I'm like, ooh, that's really cool. That's really interesting. And then they write a 20-page outline, and then they film that outline, and then they go, oh, whoops, we didn't think of the rest of the movie. Uh-oh. Let's just make this up as we go. This very much feels like they were making it up as they went. which is sad. First off, the CGI is extremely noticeable. They don't really use it a whole lot, but then it gets to the third act and it's pretty much just nothing but CGI. So I was like, well, great. And these Watchers are CGI. So it's like, nope, like you taking it out for me. In most of M. Night Shyamalan's movies, the acting is very hit and miss, and with this, it's a miss. They just acted so, like, shrill. Like, they really did not strike me as a human. Like, I'm like, you're making decisions that I'm like, no one in their right mind would do that. I was like, wait, hold on. So you get there, and then you have, like, no questions. So it's like, wow. Like, no. Really good actors, but just... No, like, no, they're not good at all. I will say this. The movie does a good job of keeping a consistent mystery going, because the mystery is like, what are these things? You know, why can they, you know, they only come out at night? Why can't they come out during the day? So it's kind of it's kind of like a mystery that keeps building up. But then when the mystery cracks and you find out what these things are, it's like, oh, come on. Like, really? No. Like, this is so disappointing. Like I said, I'll go into it more in my spoiler review. But with this, it's non-spoiler, so I don't, you know, I'm going to try to keep this reasonable. It feels like this movie... It feels like... Okay. Let's compare this movie to a fancy car that's going to a car show. This movie is a brand new car that was made in 2024. But as they're trying to drive it to the car show, parts keep falling off. They stop and they collect some parts, but they don't get all of them. And then they try to use duct tape to put them back on the car, but they end up putting the wrong parts on the wrong part of the car. It's like they decided, like, hey, this little, like, bolt to a tire, one of the bolts to the tire rim that helps screws it in popped out. Instead of putting that back in the rim, let's just nail that on the door. Let's just nail it on the car door. And it's like, what? Like that? How does that make any sense? And somebody told me, like, you know, her father made 6 cents, she made no nonsense, and I just started laughing because I was like, yeah, that's pretty much what this is. And you know, the twists, you know, when you hit the third act, it feels very, very much like a tacked on thing. Like, it did not need to be in this movie. It felt like a completely different movie that they were trying to make. And I know that this is based on a book, and it really felt like they had, like, the first 2 acts were going a certain direction. And then the third act just felt thrown at. They just said, oh, well, we got to do this. Let's just throw it right here and see if it sticks. Fortunately, it does not stick. In fact, makes little to no sense, where you're just like, you're puzzled the whole time. And the movie also does not try to attempt to explain anything. So you're sitting there going, can you please explain this? And then sometimes the movie will say, okay, we'll explain it. And then you just go, why did I ask? Like, you know what? You should have just not asked and should have just kept it silent. You didn't need to do that. So this was just, you know, I'll talk about it more in, you know, spoiler, but this was just a mess. You know, I feel like, you know, Shyamalan's daughter really needs to get a little bit more practice in, and probably don't rely on her father this much, because I did hear that the movie was completely funded by him. And then it was like, yeah, you basically went to your dad and say, Daddy, I want to make a movie. And instead of trying to find your own way in without having to rely on your family, you basically put your daddy in front of studios and just said, like, hey, this is my dad. Like, give me money. And it's like, no. Just no. So this, honestly, I felt like the trailer was much better than the movie, which is very disappointing. So I hate seeing, a movie like this. Just, it's not like this movie had its teeth ripped out. It was like they're the ones that pulled the teeth out. It was like, you really didn't plan this out. You really didn't know what you were doing, so you were taking a crayon and just writing scenes that just said, film it. Just film it. We'll fix it in post. Not realizing that post can't really fix everything. So this is, honestly, if it wasn't for the, them, I think, doing a good job at keeping the mystery up and also the atmosphere of the woods, this would have been a terrible. But because of that, this slides with a, low fine. It's a fine that is teetering on a terrible. This movie didn't piss me off. I was just, very confused. I'm like, you could have, I don't understand this. I don't understand this. This does not belong here. You're not explaining this. And then it's a movie where the more you think about it and the more questions you ask, the worse it gets. So it was just, this was just really disappointing. And I was looking forward to the movie. So, yeah, it's a bummer. And, watch it if you want, but you're gonna be absolutely puzzled and confused when you do.
Don't you want to know what they are?
It's impossible.